evening. My name is Fluffy Temper. Welcome to Like Fluffy TV. Today we are going to use the gluten-free bread machine cookbook, 175 recipes for splendid breads and delicious dishes. We're going to start with the rich pumpernickel bread today. I've made this recipe before, and then I thought I would go ahead and record it because it came out absolutely amazing, and I just had to share this cookbook with everyone. I decided to use a gluten-free bread recipe because my mom has recently found out she has a wheat allergy. Well, recently as in a year ago. And she's been saying that she's missing bread. So for Mother's Day, I thought I'd make a bunch of recipes from this cookbook and try to get her started. Here we're starting with 2 tablespoons of active dry yeast. We're going to add to that a cup of warm water or milk. I'm going to go ahead and leave the faucet on for a minute to get some nice warm water in there to wake these little yeasties up. Once the water gets nice and warm, I'll go ahead and stick it in and mix it into my yeast. I'm really excited to share these with my mom for Mother's Day. She has a bread machine, I don't, which is why I bought a bread machine cookbook for her. But it's pretty simple to do by hand. So now that we got the wet ingredients started, we'll let those yeasties wake up. We're going to start with their light flour blend. I'll show this in another video. They're just a couple different flour substitutes mixed together in here. We're going to do about 1 1/4 cups. What I like about these recipes is they do have grams, and I bought my mom a scale. I am not very good at following recipes to a T, so it makes me happy that this comes out when you just estimate. Next, I'm going to add in 1 3/4 cup of buckwheat flour. Contrary to its name, buckwheat is a nut, which is why it's safe to use in gluten-free breads. I'm going to go grab my brown sugar. It's on the shelf behind me. We need 2 tablespoons of firmly packed brown sugar. Pumpernickel does have a little sweetness to it, and this will help. This will also help feed the yeast while we're waiting for it to rise. And in goes the 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now I'm going to go grab my flaxseed and get my dog off the counter. I keep the flaxseed in the refrigerator. I don't want it to go bad. I feel like things store longer when you keep them in the fridge. I don't use it too often, but it's a great ingredient for both gluten-free and regular breads. Adding some extra omegas in there, along with some color and kind of a slightly nutty flavor. So I'm going to follow the 3 tablespoons of ground flaxseed with our 2 teaspoons of unsweetened cocoa powder. Following the cocoa powder, sorry, we're going to continue to grab our dry ingredients. I've got 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Which I promptly threw all over the place. Apparently the lid wasn't on. But if counters weren't made to get messy, they would be harder to clean. The rising time and baking time aside, this bread is really quick to make. After the baking powder, I'm going to grab 2 teaspoons of Xanthan Gum. This is going to act like our gluten and keep our bread together, give it some bubbles, give it some stretch and flexibility, which is what gluten would do in a floured recipe. So we'll toss in the 2 teaspoons of the Xanthan Gum. Follow it with 1 teaspoon of sea salt or kosher salt. Now we're going to grab some spices so we can make this taste like a pumpernickel. We're going to do 1 teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of caraway powder, which I don't own, and a quick Google search tells me I don't have to, so we're going to do anise seeds instead. And to finish off the dry ingredients, I'm going to do 1/8 a teaspoon of ascorbic acid, which is going to give us some nice bubbles once we add in our wet ingredients and our acid coming up here shortly. There goes the ascorbic acid, 1/8 of a teaspoon, just a little bit. The recipe does say it is optional. But who doesn't want some extra bubbles in their bread? Now we're going to move on to adding some wet ingredients. I have 3 tablespoons of molasses. This will help give that pumpernickel a nice rich flavor. We're not using blackstrap, that is bitter. So this will make it a little bit sweeter. I love molasses. Now I've got 3 eggs. I save my eggshells because I feed them back to my chickens. It's a cheap way to give them their calcium back. We're going to follow up the eggs with a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Which I now have to put on my grocery list. And our last ingredient is going to be the 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. This vinegar is going to mix with our baking powder and our ascorbic acid to make some really nice bubbles. And there goes our yeast. Wow. Yeast goes in. Finish mixing this all together. The directions here on out in the recipe book are for bread machine. It says to put it on your gluten-free option and has loads of other choices for you. If your gluten-free cycle doesn't exist on your bread machine, which is wonderful. I Googled what a bread machine yeast or a gluten-free cycle would do. And it would mix it, and then it lets it rise once for an hour. And then it bakes it. So I'm going to mix the heck out of this. It is a very thick batter as opposed to a dough, which made me very nervous the first time I made this. I'm so used to making yeast breads that you can knead. This one you definitely can't knead, so we're just mixing the heck out of it like the bread machine would. And then I'm going to stick it into my final pan and let it rest once for an hour. This bread, even though it contains no wheat products or gluten products, ends up being, it's a little dense, not as dense as a quick bread would be. So it's not like a pumpkin bread or a zucchini bread. It does a really nice job of having nice little air bubbles and a cute little crumb. And the taste is spot on. I brought this particular loaf into work with me to have everybody who's not gluten-free do a test run of it. And my HR lady said it tasted better than most pumpernickel breads that she has tried in the past. She really enjoyed the flavor and asked me for more. My Dungeons and Dragons group also really appreciated this bread. They've been fabulous guinea pigs. Good shout out there to the team. Thank you for putting up what I stick in front of you every Saturday. So what I learned after the first batch of this bread that I made is that it doesn't really settle. Wherever it sits is where it sits. So make sure you make the top look how you want it, because how it looks now is how it's going to look after it comes out of the oven. So I'm going to smooth it out to the best of my ability. Give it a nice little top there. Make sure I spread it into all the corners that I want, because this sucker's not moving. All right, now we're gonna move on to an hour rise. I'm gonna clean everything up here, and then we'll zoom in, speed everything up really quick. You'll occasionally see a flash of me in the background. I'm cleaning my house because we don't have to watch the bread rise, although you do because I put it in here. So I'm gonna get my kitchen clean, do my sweeping, do my mopping, clean some bathrooms, start the laundry. This thing really impressed me with how it rises. It really does. This recipe fills up this whole little bread pan. I really hope my mother enjoys this as her Mother's Day gift. A lot of recipes on the internet will tell you to use the 1-to-1 flours and things like that, and those work well. But for some reason, every recipe I've done in this book so far has done significantly better. And it's really easy because you can throw all the ingredients in the bread machine and go, which is perfect for her packed, retired lifestyle. And she can have the bread that she likes without any of the horrible side effects from eating wheat. What I plan on doing is making quite a few of these recipes. Gifting her with the cookbook, all the notes that I wrote about the recipes in the cookbook that I made, and give her all the ingredients that I have collected to make them so that she can make them herself at home on Mother's Day if she wanted to. All right, pretty soon here we're going to stick this sucker in the oven at 350 degrees. It's going to be in there for about 40 minutes. I did check it at 30 and added another 10. And then we will end up with a very beautiful, rich pumpernickel gluten-free bread. In she goes. Out. There she is. Beautiful.